Welcome to the Church in the Wild podcast. You'll be hearing the words from worship from Sunday, June 28th, 2026, where we celebrate Pride and conclude our series on stories with a conversation on the stories we leave behind. If you want to find out more about Church in the Wild and all of our upcoming events and programs, just go to churchinthewild.org. Thanks for listening. So I thought for our nature connection moment, I have some fun facts, and I think maybe some people here might have some fun gay nature facts. So people love to say like, oh, homosexuality, queer, natural, and Barb schooled us sometimes. Okay, let's break it down. There are so many different nations of genders and animals and plants that transition genders and amazing. The whole point of creation is diversity, and that's the only way we survive together, right? Is that there's different types of beings that can do different things. So I will go first to maybe prime you, but I bet you have a fun gay nature fact. I have two. Female lions can grow manes.
Wait, female lions what?
Can grow manes. Pretty cool. And worms will change their sex depending on how many worms there are. Like if they need more female worms, they'll change. They somehow just know how many there are in their, I don't know what a group of worms is called, a colony of worms. A wriggle. Yep, yeah, it's definitely a wriggle. You said it so confidently, I'm going to just say that for the rest of my life. No, it's a wriggle of worms. They just know what's needed and can change their sex based on that. So anybody else got a fun nature fact?
I think it says social groups.
Yeah. Bonobos are a kind of monkey, a primate, that have same-sex relationships at times. So do penguins.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
That's another fun fact I know. Yeah.
And I've heard that, like, penguins, if a baby, like, if something happens and there's an egg that doesn't have anyone to take care of it, that, like, other penguins will adopt it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a zoo where there was like two male penguins that were partnered, and they took care of an egg.
Tango makes three.
Oh.
It's the most banned book in the country. And I read it to my class every year.
Thank you, elementary teacher. Yeah.
I teach high school, but I
High
still
school
read it.
teacher.
I still read it to them.
Thank you, high school teachers. What is it called?
And Tango makes three because they named the baby penguin Tango.
Wait, dolphins.
Dolphins. Yeah, I mean, dolphins are very gay. Yeah. Well, yeah. So that's just to prime you to go do some research about what is natural in the world and what is not. You just posted a great reel from, what's that person's name? About calling what's political natural and what's natural political.
Yeah, I mean that's sort of.
Who is that? Who do you?
I don't remember it.
What's their name?
That's one of the definitions of ideology is when something that's made up begins to be acceptable as natural.
Something made up. Yeah. Yes.
I have a gay animal fact. So, I'm sorry, this just blew my mind. So, giraffes, there's more same-sex than opposite-sex activity. In fact, studies say same-sex accounts for more than 90% of the giraffe population.
90% of giraffes are gay. I love it. Put that as your status. Hi, welcome, Brad.
There are a lot of insects that change sex.
A lot of insects, a lot of sea creatures.
Yes.
Yeah, and then there's all these creatures that have like 80 different sex, like genders, or like there's different ways scientists categorize these things, and it diversity rules in the natural world. So yes, use that as some fodder to continue your own research. Get And Tango Makes Two. I'll have to get that one.
Great book.
And Tango Makes Three. Yeah, oh my gosh. And now you have something to say when you hear some ideology making up something that isn't true.
Hi everyone, I'm Matt. I use he, him pronouns, sometimes the royal we, just for, kicks and giggles.
Often use the royal we.
We do enjoy it. Our poem today is Let There Be Pride by Richard Blanco. To remember every stone thrown by our mothers, fathers at Stonewall, to keep applauding their kick lines that fired up our fight for freedom, to hear their voices still singing against the nightsticks of hate, let there be pride. To unfold our AIDS quilts again over the lawn of our memory, to read aloud the names of our lost souls still stitched in our souls, to wrap ourselves in the colors of their lives that still color ours, to give thanks for their fight that let us survive to remember them. Let there be pride. To keep loving the queer child in all of us who grew up like me, terrified of our own beautiful selves, knowing home was a place we had yet to find, to keep the faith we found on that long journey we took toward that somewhere over the rainbow. Let there be pride. To never let Matthew Shepard die again, to raise up every teenager high on our shoulders and let them see the parades of their kind celebrating their worthy lives, never more to be taken by others or by themselves. Let there be pride. To kiss again our first kiss against lips the same as ours, exploding like a star in us. To walk again hand in hand with our first loves the first time we dare to strut our tenderness down sidewalks, to never again be the shamed selves we let die, to be reborn unashamed as a full moon. Let there be pride. To keep silencing the words that keep trying to silence us, to keep renaming ourselves as she, he, them, to keep spreading our love of language. Our language of love is love and always will be love. To keep our right at the altar to say, I do, I do, I do. Let there be pride. To praise our hands brushing away life's dark anguish onto brilliant canvases. To loud our ears listening to strangers' sorrows in the mirror until they see their truth in ours. To revere our minds thinking from our hearts, to forgive the unforgivable in ourselves and others, let there be pride. To go on flaunting our fierce feather boas and strapping on our butch tool belts, slip on our Marie Antoinette wigs and paint our leather pants on, to dust gold glitter over our breasts and beards to keep our confetti guns firing. Let there be pride. To keep alive the selves we lost at pulse, still pulsing through us, to never stop dancing with our souls to the soul of our song's proverbs. I am what I am. I'm coming out. I will survive. We got nothing to be guilty of. Constant craving. Voulez-vous coucher avec moi? RESPECT. We are family. We are the champions. And we'll keep on fighting till the end. Let there be music. Let there be lights. Let there be us. Let there be pride. Cheers. Amen.
Hi, I'm Natalie, and my pronouns are she, her. Our wisdom today comes from author and activist James Baldwin, originally published in a 1979 interview with the New York Times. The bottom line is this: you write in order to change the world, knowing perfectly well that you probably can't, but also knowing that literature is indispensable to the world. In some way, your aspirations and concern for a single man in fact do begin to change the world. The world changes according to the way people see it, and if you alter, even by a millimeter, the way a person looks or people look at reality, then you can change it. I'm an old-fashioned writer, and despite the odds, I want to change the world. What I hope to convey? Well, joy, love, the passion to feel how our choices affect the world. That's all.
Perfect reading. Thank you, Natalie. So we're wrapping up this month-long focus on stories. We've been doing a lot of celebrating this month. The first Sunday was our 5th anniversary, so we told the story of Church in the Wild and shared our stories of what this community means to us, how we found our way here. And then we talked about creation stories, our origin stories, those stories handed down to us. So not just origin of the world stories, but also the stories about us and how we got here. And, you know, there's always those fun stories about how people were born or how they came to be welcomed into a family. And then last week, we talked about the stories we tell ourselves. The sort of mental story that we constantly are writing, I guess, or speaking to us in our own minds, and how important that is to be aware that we create our reality with that story. And so this week we're talking about, we've had the stories given to us, the stories we tell ourselves, and now this week the stories we leave behind, the stories we tell others. And basically, if there's anything we leave June with, it's that stories are our superpower, right? If you have ever done any kind of fundraising as a pastor, and I went door to door one summer asking for money for NIPERG, so I've been involved. Always, if you want to raise money, tell the story. What is this donation you're asking for gonna do? What has your, project, whatever you're trying to fundraise for, tell the impact stories. It's like the biggest buzzword because it's true. You gotta tell the story. It makes people feel something and gets them to move into action. And stories have been a part of humanity from the beginning of our species. We've been telling stories to help us make meaning of the world, to help us understand life, and we're able to co-create with the Creator by our stories. We have used stories not just to explain the way things are, but to help us understand our place in the world, our connection to the divine, and the role that we have to play here as humans on this planet. And as I said, we create our own personal realities. We can't necessarily control what happens to us, but we can decide how we respond to it. We get to write that story that we tell ourselves about what happened and how we're going to move forward. So this week, we're thinking about the stories we pass down. Of course, those stories are all affected by those first two, right? The stories that were given to us and the stories we tell ourselves a lot of times bleed through to other people, right? Like, as children, we probably knew a little bit of the story our parents were telling themselves. We might not have gotten to hear their innermost thoughts, but it bleeds through in how we show up in the world, right? So we're thinking today about that. How do we show up, and what story are we telling? What are we leaving behind for future generations? Novelist Frank Cottrell Boyce said, "One of the best things a children's writer can do is to implant signposts in childhood to things that are good and to the small pleasures that will get you through life." So if we're wanting to leave something positive, or if we're wanting to change the world with our story in even the smallest of ways, right? We can think about those signposts that point to the things that are good, the small pleasures that will get us through life. Again, recognizing you can't control necessarily what happens to you, but how can we help others, kids, or just other people remember to look for the good, to decide, to choose the small pleasures and help remind them that's how we got through life too. The stories we share point the way for those who are going to walk the trail behind us. So of course, stories have the power to change the course of human events, right? Okay, off the top of your head, what stories have changed history? The nativity, right? And again, these can be fiction, nonfiction stories, because truth is truth, right? So any story, what story has changed history? The nativity, right? Jesus, that story. Exactly. They know the power of story. Yeah.
There's a lot of stories we're taught as kids in, like, the Rev War and the Declaration of Independence that were really not true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of that, but it's
Exactly.
it's folklore stuff, but
George Washington.
yeah, he's got more. If he slept everywhere that we claim he slept, he would never have done anything.
Yeah, and this too, like, it could be changed for positive or changed for worse, right? But there are stories. Stories have changed the course of human events. Yeah. I thought about To Kill a Mockingbird and how powerful that fictional story was during Jim Crow era, right? Is that right? That's the right era that it was written in? Prior. Earlier? Correct me. Early 60s. Okay. Thank you, teachers. Uncle Tom's Cabin. Yeah, absolutely.
The most popular American novel of the 19th century.
Yeah.
The color purple.
Yeah. Alice. Yeah.
Stonewall.
Stonewall? Yeah. What a powerful story. That's why we're celebrating Pride, right? So along the lines of what you were talking about, Hannah, there's this concept, right? Stories have the power to change the world, but like you said, every story you encounter is going to affect you. So I'm curious to hear what personal changes, like what story changed you? Having read or heard fiction, nonfiction.
As I have told my grandparents, my mother read us Aesop's fables and whatnot, and the tortoise and the hare made an impression on little Dolly, whose little short legs could never keep up with anybody, and slow and steady wins the race. And it's okay to, there was another one, the pokey little puppy.
Oh my goodness.
The pokey little puppy comes home late and gets all the goods.
That was my nickname as a kid, Pokey
Me
Pokey.
too. And teachers told me I was slow as molasses in January,
Yes.
and now I'm okay with that. I am happy taking things slow and steady, and take my time. And I'm trying.
Glorification of busy.
Oh
Like, you
yeah.
don't have to
Oh,
be
I
always-
did this and this and this and this. I said, "Are you insane?" I'm thinking to myself,
Yeah.
"What's the matter with you?" But I just it's been a part of me all my life, and I'm so glad I take it slow.
Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are great stories as a kid. Like Horton Hears a Who, but the value of everybody and
Yeah.
the Lorax.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another wild saint.
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss.
Yeah, they had an impact. Mike Mulligan and the Steam Shovel, I remember too.
Yeah.
Like, really tough times, so.
Thank you,
It took me a while.
Mother. What story? Yeah, the story of a person, too.
Moby Dick.
Moby Dick.
For those of you who don't know, the guy who wrote Moby Dick was wildly in love with the guy who wrote the Scarlet Letter. And moved to where the Melville House is now, which is in Pittston, I think, in Massachusetts.
Really?
Moved there because it was close to Hawthorne. And that book I read for the third time with a student who wanted to do an independent study based on wanting to read that book with me. So I read it for maybe the third time, and I had overlooked how queer it is. It's a very, Queequeg and Ishmael get married at the beginning. They walk around holding hands. There's lots of very suggestive descriptions later on in the book, and I think that whole novel is Ishmael trying to come to terms with losing his love.
Wow. Cool. Yeah, stories are powerful. This kind of opens a little can of worms, but for me, one of the a story that kind of, I don't know, just opened up my world a little bit was Harry Potter. And there was such good themes and messages and like imagination. And actually, I remember reading it here when I was on summer staff in high school and college, and I couldn't put it down. It's so engaging and powerful. And then, we find out about the author, and them as a person is ick, but their story can really teach you a lot of great things. So that too, I think, comes along with another lesson about the art and the artist and separating the two, and how do you make sense of that all. It's fascinating. But I feel like a lot of good has happened in the world because of that story. So I hope that counteracts any not good that she's trying to accomplish in the other parts of her life. Frida Kahlo.
Most people don't know that she was super queer.
Yeah.
She had a lot of girlfriends, boyfriends, and she was genderqueer.
Yeah.
Frida Kahlo, as well as pretty disabled for most of her life.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is cool too, to think about how the stories of people, I think, were most common, which is great for when we think about the stories we're leaving behind, right? Because we don't have to write Moby Dick to leave a story behind. Just by living our lives, our story will be told by somebody. There's this great quote that I've been so excited to share through this whole month, and the time has finally come. Gus Speth, an environmental lawyer and advocate who co-founded the Natural Resources Defense Council, said, "I used to think the top environmental problems were biodiversity loss, ecosystem collapse, and climate change. I thought that with 30 years of good science, we could address those problems. But I was wrong. The top environmental problems are selfishness, greed, and apathy. And to deal with those, we need a spiritual and cultural transformation. And we scientists don't know how to do that." Dang, but we do. So let's do it, right? We know that stories can help bring this social, spiritual, cultural transformation that the scientists are begging for to happen, right? They're just sharing the data all the time, but it's us who can spin the story, who can, write it, to show it in real, practical, individual places that will help create the change needed to fix our climate issues.
Like a scientist and writer and saint, Susan Simmert.
Ah, yes.
There's a book everybody should read.
Yeah. So just by showing up to life and being present and paying attention and then telling about it, right, Sue? Like Mary Oliver says.
Oh, yeah.
Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. Just by doing that, we are telling a story. Every time you have an incredible experience, or see beauty, or feel joy, you spread that experience when you tell the story of it. Alice Walker, right? I think it pisses God off when you see the color purple and don't stop and notice it. And I think we could go a step further and point it out to somebody else. Or say, I saw the most beautiful purple iris the other day. And just sharing about that makes waves. It makes those ripples. It's a story that, again, is a signpost to what is good and the small pleasures that will get us through life. I love the stories you all share about your experiences here and in nature and how your connection with the divine and creation has improved your life. The first Sunday, I was in heaven hearing you all share about how great life is in community, in nature. And they inspire me to keep getting outside. I need that inspiration just as much as anyone else, to keep showing up, to meet the divine, to bring awareness to the presence. And I know they inspire others too. Whether or not somebody ever shows up here with you, it doesn't matter. Just hearing you go on and on about your wonderful experiences in nature, it's that little nudge to people to oh, yeah, maybe I'll go for a walk, or whatever it is, or to stop and notice the flowers. Our stories are inspiring, especially when we can be positive with them, point to the good. We can leave behind stories of our own experiences, and we can write and leave behind stories of the future that we hope for. That's a really powerful one that I didn't want to miss in this conversation. I am on a campaign for more hopeful, futuristic stories, right? Because every futuristic story is post-apocalyptic. It's everything's ruined. What now? It's the zombie apocalypse or whatever. Every future story is not looking great. But does anybody know, there are some out there. Does anyone have a favorite futuristic story that's hopeful? Star Trek. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole genre in sci-fi. It's solar punk, kind of, where instead of post-apocalyptic, you get nature-y inspired instead of steampunk.
Yes, I'm so glad to know that. Sci-fi subgenre.
The Orville series.
Orville.
Yeah,
Okay.
we should do more of them.
Yeah.
But they were kind of positive.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a series. Right now it's just 2 books. The first one is called Psalm for the Wild Built. And it is the best, encouraging, hopeful story about humanity. We've made it to a moon somewhere and started over, and the robots had a revolution, and we made peace with them, and we learned all of our lessons, and we stick to the path, and we don't destroy nature, and people are still people, and it's still interesting, and there was still conflict, but it wasn't destruction everywhere, It was this, and what it did for me, it was laying a groundwork. Oh, right, that's what we need to do. We need to come up with these agreements and, decide together that we're not going to harm anything in nature if we can help it. And
And it's just fascinating to dream about a hope-filled future. So keep writing those stories and keep sharing them when you find a hopeful, futuristic story. Yeah.
When we were here the first week of stories, I mentioned the poem we did at one of our services.
Yeah.
And it's so appropriate. Can I read it?
Yes.
Yeah. I save it in my wallet. This was Turning to One Another by Margaret Wheatley. There is no power greater than a community discovering what it cares about. Ask what's possible, not what's wrong, and keep asking. Notice what you care about. Assume that many others share your dreams. Be brave enough to start a conversation that matters. Talk to people you know. Talk to people you don't know. Talk to people you never talk to. Be intrigued by the differences you hear. Expect to be surprised. Treasure curiosity more than certainty. Invite in everybody who cares to work on what's possible. Acknowledge that everyone is an expert about something. Know that creative solutions come from new connections. Remember, you don't fear people whose story you know. Real listening always brings people closer together. Trust that meaningful conversations can change your world. Rely on human goodness and stay together.
Thank you for that callback. Yes.
Margaret Wheatley.
Margaret Wheatley.
Turning to One Another.
So as we conclude, that was so great. As we conclude our month focus on stories and think about the stories we leave behind. I've heard this saying, I don't know who said it, be the adult you needed as a kid, right? Or maybe be the kind of human you needed on your worst day. Just showing up with that intention writes a story for the rest of the world to get to experience. Because the fact is, whatever story we leave behind will change the world. It will have an effect. We will send ripples, right, through the web of life. And so that's why it's important for us to be aware of the story we leave behind, to have intention behind that, right? Stories are powerful. They might be one of our superpowers. And we can be good stewards of stories, the ones we absorb, the ones we tell ourselves, and the ones we share, by having intention and time to sit with those stories, to look at them, and to care for them. Because you matter. You being here, you moving throughout the world, your interactions with other people, you're writing a story that will extend for years to come. We have no idea, right? The effect our lives, our stories will have. So show up as the person you needed as a kid, or the person you needed on your worst day, knowing that your stories will change the world. We'll make it so.
Hi, I'm Kaden. If you walk through a forest, you'll notice something quite foreign. Nothing there is asking permission to exist. Trees do not shrink themselves for the comfort of the trees around them. Rivers do not apologize for changing currents. Wildflowers do not question whether they deserve sunlight. And oceans do not apologize for their depth. Birds don't wait for approval before they sing. Nature carries no shame about becoming what it was always meant to become. Humans, though, are given stories. Stories about who belongs and who doesn't. Stories about who should stay quiet, who should be hidden, who should take up less space, who should become smaller versions of themselves just to make others comfortable. Right now, I want us to sit with pride and notice the narratives that we should be leaving behind. In nature, there's no tree in a forest trying to be taller than every other tree to prove its worth. They just simply exist. But humans inherit stories. Stories about who should belong, who should stay hidden, about who deserves love, and who should be stripped of their identity and autonomy, who gets to be displaced or deported. Stories about those whose voices matter and whose identity becomes a debate. Right now, there are people, especially those considered immigrants, whether they're born here or not. LGBTQ plus people, especially many transgender people who are living through times that feel heavy, times where rights, dignity, and simple humanity can feel questioned or challenged. And that matters because equality is not a reward given to a select few. It's not something to be earned through suffering, explanation, or permission. It's a human birthright. And when people stand in pride, they're not saying, I'm greater than you. They're just saying, I'm here, that I exist, I deserve safety and love, and I deserve to be fully human. And there's power in that. Because sometimes pride is resistance, and sometimes pride is the hand reaching out after years of hiding. Sometimes pride is surviving a world that tried to convince you to disappear. Sometimes pride is simply waking up and choosing to remain yourself. And there's something beautiful in that kind of courage. But on the other hand, there's another face of pride, the pride of ego. The pride that tells us to build walls instead of bridges. The pride that whispers to be more important, to be more right, to be above somebody else. And that maybe pride leaves behind stories too. Stories of division, of loneliness, and of fear. Because the ego wants us standing on mountains looking down on others, but the soul wants us standing in forests remembering we belong among one another. The trees do not ask who is worthy enough to stand beside them, and the sky does not separate who deserves sunlight. The rain does not choose who receives water. Nature keeps offering itself freely to us again and again. Maybe there's something to learn from that, and maybe the stories that we leave behind are not measured by how loudly we announced ourselves, or how high that we climbed. Maybe they're measured by how much room we created for others to breathe. How much love we left in places that felt empty. How much gentleness we offered where there had only been judgment. How many people felt safer because we were here. So tonight, keep the pride that says, I matter and that I belong. I won't disappear. And keep the pride that protects dignity. And keep the pride that resists shame, but let go of the pride that asks you to become bigger than somebody else. Because the most beautiful things in nature never need to prove themselves. They simply become what they were meant to be. And maybe our work is the same, not becoming more important or more powerful, but just becoming our true selves and leaving behind the narratives that society has written for us, replacing them with a softer, kinder, and more gentle humanity. Breaking generational cycles and releasing reactionary views that no longer have a home here. Making room for compassion where fear once lived, and understanding that where there is darkness and division, that together in unity we can always be light. And that is something worth celebrating. That is something to be proud of.
Thanks for listening. If you want to support Church in the Wild and the work we do in striving for environmental and social justice, just head on over to our website, churchinthewild.org, and click the donate link at the top. There you can make a donation, set yourself up as a recurring supporter, or you can buy something from our Redbubble shop. We're so glad you're with us on this journey, following the Spirit through creation, adventure, and restoration. Until next time.